Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging straight into a technology that's, well, it's aiming to redefine the very idea of trust online. Blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the jargon for a second. We're here to get to the core of what makes this so revolutionary. And honestly, this is where it gets really interesting, like right away.
Absolutely. Think of this as your fast track to really getting the essentials. We've gone through Satoshi Nakamoto's original Bitcoin white paper, Wikipedia's broad overview, and, a bunch of other sources to pull out the key stuff for you.
Okay, so what was the big problem this whole thing started with? Usually, online payments need banks, right? Intermediaries.
Right.
The original idea behind Bitcoin was direct peer-to-peer electronic cash. Cut out the middleman. But, and this is the big question, how do you stop someone spending the same digital dollar twice without a central bank watching?
That's the crux of it, the double spending problem. And Satoshi's 2008 paper, it lays out this pretty elegant solution right from the start.
Yeah.
The basic idea. A peer-to-peer network that acts like a distributed timestamp server. It groups transactions into blocks.
Right.
And then uses this clever method, hash-based proof of work, to link these blocks together in order. Creates an unchangeable chain.
Okay, proof of work. Let's unpack that a bit. Sounds kind of complex.
After all, it's computation, yeah.
Sure.
But the key thing is, adding a new block takes serious computer effort, like solving a really hard digital puzzle.
Oh.
The longer the chain gets, the more computing power has gone into it. So going back to change something in the past, it becomes incredibly difficult. Almost impossible, really, like trying to rewrite history carved in digital stone.
Wow.
Exactly. The white paper says the longest chain is the definitive record. It's proof it came from the majority of honest computing power in the network.
So security through the crowd, basically.
Pretty much, as long as the honest nodes, the good guys, control more processing power than any attacker, the real chain just keeps growing faster. Any fake attempts get left behind. Security comes from the collective effort, not one central place.
So it's decentralized trust, but enforced by math and computing power, not an institution.
You got it.
What's also kind of amazing is how simple the initial network design seemed. The paper says messages are just broadcast best effort.
Yeah, it wasn't overly complex. Nodes, the computers in the network, can leave and come back whenever.
Oh, they just catch up.
They just look for the longest proof of work chain. That's the accepted history. It makes the whole system really resilient, very adaptable.
Okay, let's circle back to that timestamp server idea you mentioned. That sounds critical.
It really is. The paper describes it like this. A server takes a hash. Think of it as a unique digital fingerprint of a block of transactions.
Right.
And then basically broadcasts that hash publicly. The paper even references publishing it, like in a newspaper, though digitally, of course.
So if I needed proof a transaction happened at a certain time, I could just point to that public hash, like a universal digital notary.
Precisely. And here's the chain part. Each new timestamp doesn't just have the hash of its own block. It also includes the hash of the previous timestamp. That's what links them together. Each new block reinforces the whole history before it.
Like building layer upon layer makes it super hard to tamper with anything earlier without breaking everything that came after.
Exactly. It creates this incredibly strong, verifiable history.
Now, thinking about practicalities, the white paper also touches on privacy, right? That's huge for anything financial.
It does. The main suggestion was using a new key pair, like a new digital identity for every single transaction.
To make it harder to link payments back to one person.
Yeah, much harder. But as the paper acknowledges, it's not perfect anonymity. Especially if a transaction pulls money from multiple sources, multiple inputs, those inputs must have belonged to the same owner.
Okay, so better privacy, but not total invisibility. What about attackers, people trying to cheat the system? The paper says even if someone makes an alternate chain, they can't just invent money or steal money they never had.
That's a really key point. The honest nodes on the network only accept valid transactions and blocks that follow the rules. An attacker might try to build their own longer chain to undo one of their own recent payments.
The double spend attack again, trying to claw back money they already spent.
Exactly. That's the main risk they were focused on there.
Okay, but how likely is that? Can an attacker actually build a longer chain faster than the whole honest network?
This is where the math in the paper gets really interesting. It calculates the probability of an attacker succeeding, and the main takeaway, that probability drops off exponentially with every new block the honest network adds.
Exponentially. Wow. That sounds powerful. Can you give us an idea, like some numbers, those kinds of surprising facts really help you grasp it?
Sure. The paper gives some great examples. Let's say an attacker has only 10% of the network's computing power. That's Q 0.1 in their math.
Okay, 10%.
The chance of them creating a longer chain drops below 0.1% after just 5 more blocks are added by the honest network, 5 confirmations.
Less than 1 in 1,000 chance. After only 5 blocks. That's fast.
It is. It shows how quickly the security ramps up.
What if the attacker is stronger? Say they control 30% of the network? That sounds much riskier.
Even at 30% QL 0.3, which is quite significant, the probability of them succeeding falls below that same 0.1% mark after about 24 confirmations.
24 blocks. Still, the odds become incredibly small relatively quickly.
Exactly. It just becomes computationally infeasible to rewrite history once a few blocks are piled on top. It's like that digital record is setting deeper and deeper into concrete with every block.
So the core ideas from that 2008 paper are still incredibly relevant. Okay, let's widen the lens now. How has blockchain been defined and how has it evolved since then? Wikipedia usually gives a good summary.
It does. Wikipedia defines it as a public distributed ledger managed by a peer-to-peer network using consensus algorithms like proof of work to validate new transaction blocks.
Right.
It credits Satoshi Nakamoto with Bitcoin in 2008, but also points out, importantly, that it built on earlier work. People like Haber, Stornetta, Bayer were working on cryptographic timestamping way back.
Yeah, it's amazing how these ideas come together over time. And Wikipedia highlights Bitcoin as the first digital currency to solve double spending without a trusted third party. That was the breakthrough.
Absolutely monumental. And the structure is key. Decentralized, distributed, often public. The record isn't in one place, it's copied across loads of computers.
Making it super hard to tamper with. You'd have to hack thousands of computers at once.
Practically impossible, yeah.
Hmm.
And it means anyone can check the records, audit them relatively easily. That builds transparency and trust in the system itself, not in an institution.
That's the core appeal, isn't it? Trust through transparency and math. Wikipedia also mentions this solves the infinite reproducibility issue for digital stuff. You can't just copy-paste Bitcoin like a file.
Exactly. The blockchain confirms each unit of value moves only once. That's a real aha moment when you get it. It's a protocol for exchanging value directly.
Got it. What about those forks Wikipedia mentions, when the network briefly disagrees?
Yeah, that can happen. Sometimes 2 valid blocks are found at roughly the same time in different parts of the network. Creates a temporary split or fork.
But it resolves itself.
Yes, the protocol has rules. Typically, the chain that grows longer first, the one with the most accumulated proof of work in Bitcoin's case, becomes the accepted one. The network eventually converges on a single history.
Okay, so temporary bumps, but the system sorts itself out. And the more blocks added after a transaction, the less likely it is to ever be reversed. Back to that exponential security.
Precisely. The deeper it's buried, the more permanent it is, like locking it in an ever deeper digital vault.
Okay, so foundations are solid, cryptocurrencies are the first big use case, but it didn't stop there, did it? Around 2014, sources like the ICAEW history note, people started realizing this tech could do way more, beyond currency.
Oh, yeah. That's when you start hearing about blockchain 2.0, the idea that the underlying tech could be used for all sorts of other things. Financial agreements, tracking assets, verifying data.
And the applications got pretty diverse, right? Some maybe unexpected ones?
Definitely. Take gaming, for instance. That might not be the first thing people think of.
Gaming. How does blockchain fit into video games? Are we talking about trading virtual swords for crypto?
Kind of, yeah. Many games now have in-game items, skins, gear, virtual land. Traditionally, selling these for real money was tricky, sometimes frowned upon, or even linked to shady stuff like skin gambling.
Right, I've heard about that.
Blockchain games changed that. They let players truly own these items as NFTs or cryptocurrencies. You can then trade them freely on marketplaces, potentially cashing out for real money.
So true ownership of digital stuff you earn or buy in a game.
Exactly. It gives players real value for their time and effort, potentially. It's a big shift.
That is interesting. Okay, what else? Any other less obvious uses?
How about domain names, like website addresses?
Okay.
We're seeing blockchain-based domain names emerge. Things ending in .eth, .lux, .kia-ed. These aren't controlled by the usual central authority, IKN. They live on a blockchain, like Ethereum.
Why do that? What's the advantage?
Well, one big potential benefit is censorship resistance. Since there's no single point of control, it's much harder for anyone to just take down a domain or block access to the website it points to.
Ah, decentralization again.
Exactly. Plus, some of them, like .red domains, can double as easier to remember addresses for crypto wallets. Instead of a long string of random characters, you could send crypto to, say, myname.red.
That's actually pretty useful. Makes crypto feel a bit more user-friendly.
Definitely.
What about more sort of businessy applications? Data management.
Huge potential there. Blockchain's ability to create a permanent, transparent, verifiable record is really attractive. Think about tracking sales data, making sure it's accurate and hasn't been messed with.
Or tracking digital content usage.
Yeah.
Paying artists fairly.
Exactly. Monitoring digital use, making sure creators get paid, musicians, writers, even wireless network providers. IBM worked with music groups like SCOP and PRS on this. Artist Imogen Heap proposed a whole system, Mycelia, using blockchain for artists' rights.
So it's about reliable record keeping for ownership and usage rights. Makes sense. I've also heard a lot about supply chains.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Tracking goods as they move from source to consumer, it can be incredibly complex.
And blockchain helps how?
Transparency and traceability. Amazon patented a system to verify goods are authentic. Walmart uses it to track produce, like lettuce, helps with food safety. You can quickly trace back contamination.
Wow, tracking lettuce.
Yeah. And car companies like Mercedes-Benz are looking at it for tracking CO2 emissions across their supply chain. It adds accountability, helps verify claims about ethical sourcing or environmental impact, and fights counterfeiting.
Okay, so the applications are spreading out. Gaming, domains, data, supply chains. But there must be hurdles, right? Widespread adoption isn't happening overnight. Scalability seems like a big one. The Finextra article mentioned that.
Absolutely. Scalability is probably the critical challenge. Can the network handle enough transactions quickly and cheaply enough for these big real-world uses?
Like, can it handle Visa-level transaction volumes?
That's the benchmark often mentioned, yeah. Early blockchains like Bitcoin just weren't built for that kind of speed. When lots of people use them, they can get congested, slows down, fees go up, like a digital traffic jam.
Okay, so how are people trying to fix that? The Finextra piece mentioned different approaches.
Right, they group them into categories. Layer 1 solutions, Layer 2 solutions, better consensus mechanisms, and hybrid approaches.
Layer 1.
Yeah.
That means changing the main blockchain itself.
Exactly, tweaking the core code, the fundamental architecture. Segregated witness, or SegWit, on Bitcoin is a good example.
SegWit. What did that do?
It basically rearranged how transaction data was stored in blocks, separating the signature part. This made transactions effectively smaller, so more could fit in each block. Increase throughput.
So making better use of the existing space. Okay, what about layer 2? That sounds like building on top.
You got it. Layer 2 solutions are built on top of the main blockchain. They handle lots of transactions off the main chain. Yeah, processing them separately and then just settling the final results back onto the main Layer 1 chain periodically. This takes a huge load off the main network.
Can you give an example?
State channels are a classic one. Two parties open a channel, do tons of transactions just between themselves, super fast and cheap, off-chain.
Like a private tab.
Kind of. Then when they're done, they close the channel, and only the net outcome gets recorded on the main blockchain. Really good for things like micropayments or gaming, where you have lots of small, frequent interactions.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Less clutter on the main road. Now, switching gears a bit, there was this really interesting, maybe slightly out there discussion on Reddit. Could blockchain, maybe Ethereum smart contracts, actually replace government functions?
Chuckles. Yeah, that's definitely pushing the boundaries. It's a fascinating thought experiment, though. The Reddit user was wondering, could you use smart contracts for voting on laws? Or even military decisions, with the contract just automatically executing the outcome?
Wow. Fully automated, decentralized governance.
That was the idea. They even speculated if that potential is why governments are looking so closely at crypto now. It's a pretty radical idea.
Extremely radical. What did people in the discussion think? Was it seen as, realistic?
There was a lot of skepticism, as you'd expect. People pointed out that while, yeah, maybe some processes could be more efficient, completely replacing human judgment, especially for complex things like laws or defense, that seemed like a huge stretch.
Right. Real-world governing is messy, full of nuance and ethics. Hard to capture all that in code.
Exactly. But there were interesting middle ground ideas, too, like delegating your vote on the blockchain. You could give your voting power to someone you trust on certain issues.
And take it back easily if you disagree later.
Yeah, that kind of flexibility. And people mentioned existing on-chain governance models in crypto projects like AAVE. Token holders vote on changes to the protocol.
But isn't that usually one token, one vote? Doesn't that mean the richest players get the most say? Seems different from one person, one vote.
That's a major criticism, absolutely. It raises big questions about fairness and representation. How do you translate democratic ideals into a token system? It's complex.
For sure. Did the Reddit thread have any more sort of grounded examples?
There was one about road maintenance, actually.
About maintenance.
Yeah, the idea was use blockchain to collect tiny microtaxes automatically as people drive. Then use smart contracts for bidding on repair jobs. Payment happens automatically when the community verifies the work is done.
Okay, that sounds potentially more practical. Using it to make a specific service more efficient and transparent.
Right. And someone pointed out the message in Bitcoin's very first block, the Genesis block, referenced a bank bailout.
Suggesting a philosophical angle. Challenging centralized power.
Many interpret it that way, yeah. An alternative to government monopoly on money. Maybe challenging other centralized functions too. But the discussion also stressed the huge challenges. Integrating with the physical world. Political pushback.
And are people actually trying this on-chain governance stuff now?
There are experiments, yeah. Projects like Claros, Optimism, WorldCoin are trying different things. But it's early days. The takeaway seemed to be maybe blockchain could replace some functions, like voting systems or parliaments theoretically, but the politics and practicalities are massive hurdles.
So full robo-government seems unlikely soon, but maybe incremental changes in specific areas. Okay, let's ground ourselves again. Risks. We have to talk about risks. Investopedia laid out some key ones.
Absolutely crucial. Volatility is the obvious one. Crypto prices can swing wildly. You need solid research and a plan. Don't just jump in.
We've all seen those charts go up and down like crazy.
For sure. And fraud is a huge concern. Investopedia mentions stats like over $5.6 billion lost to crypto scams and hacks in 2023 alone.
$5.6 billion. That's staggering.
It really is. It means you have to be incredibly careful, do your homework on projects, platforms, be vigilant. It's still a bit of a Wild West in some corners.
That figure really hammers home the need for caution and probably more regulation. What else? Taxes.
Taxes are complicated. In many places, crypto is treated as property. That means almost every transaction, buying, selling, trading one crypto for another, even using it to buy coffee can be a taxable event you need to report.
Every transaction. Wow.
Plus, earning crypto from mining, staking, lending that's often taxed as income too, tracking it all can be a major headache.
Definitely something people need to be aware of. Okay, so risks are real.
Right.
How are governments actually responding? We saw PwC reports, White House statement. There's a lot happening globally, right?
A huge amount. Regulators worldwide are stepping up. The Basel Committee, which sets bank rules globally, has new standards for how banks should handle crypto asset exposure.
Classifying them by risk.
Yeah, basically. Group 1 for lower risk stuff like regulated stablecoins or tokenized assets. Group 2 for everything else, needing more capital backing. Those rules kick in January 2025. It shows they're taking financial stability implications seriously.
So international standards for banks are coming. What about individual countries?
Lots of activity. Australia requires exchanges to register, implement anti-money laundering rules, and they're working on licenses. Austria is getting ready for MiCA, the big EU-wide crypto regulation framework.
MiCA sounds important for Europe.
Definitely. The Bahamas wants to be an innovation hub, but regulated. Japan's moving forward. Luxembourg is piloting MiCA. Singapore's focusing on stablecoins and wholesale CBDCs, while warning retail investors about speculation. South Africa just declared crypto a financial product, bringing it under existing laws.
So a clear trend towards more rules, more clarity everywhere.
Seems that way, yes. Trying to bring crypto into the regulated financial world.
And the U.S., the White House is involved.
Yeah, the White House is focused on getting regulatory clarity, especially for stablecoins. They want tech-neutral rules that protect consumers but allow responsible innovation. There's been a working group figuring out legislative proposals.
Okay, so globally, the direction is towards regulation, trying to balance innovation and risk. Now, what about using blockchain in government itself? Block apps highlighted some specific challenges there.
Right, it's not straightforward. First hurdle, just resistance to change. Bureaucracies can be slow-moving. Implementing blockchain disrupts workflows, might change roles. That takes a careful planning, training, getting people on board.
The usual challenges of big organizational change. Amplified, maybe? What else?
That core idea of censorship resistance, public blockchains are built on it. But governments often need some level of control, the ability to modify records in certain legal situations. Finding that balance is tricky. How much decentralization is right for a government system?
That's a fundamental clash, isn't it?
Hmm.
Decentralized ethos versus government authority.
It really is. Then there are the technical issues. Scalability, again, can it handle government-level transaction volumes? And integrating with old legacy IT systems, that's a huge one. Governments often have ancient tech infrastructure.
Making new blockchain systems talk to the old creaky databases.
Exactly. Interoperability is key and hard. Plus, just finding the talent. Governments often lack in-house blockchain expertise. They need to hire, train, maybe partner with specialists.
So it's tech, organization, culture, even philosophy. Lots to navigate. Okay, nearly there. Let's quickly cover the different types of blockchains. TechTarget had a breakdown.
Yeah, 4 main types they listed: public, private, consortium, and hybrid.
Public is like Bitcoin or Ethereum, open to anyone.
Right. Anyone can join, see transactions, participate in consensus, very transparent, decentralized, but can be slower, sometimes energy intensive depending on the consensus method.
Private is the opposite, controlled by one organization.
Yep. Permissioned. They decide who gets in, offers more control, often faster, but less decentralized.
And consortium is in the middle.
Shared by a group of organizations, like a semi-private club. Balances control and decentralization. Think industry groups working together.
And hybrid mixes them.
Takes elements from both public and private. Lets you customize access and transparency for different parts of an application.
So different tools for different jobs. Okay, last thing. Let's just quickly recap those core concepts, maybe using the AWS points. What makes blockchain blockchain?
Key features AWS highlights: decentralization, no single boss, tamper-proof records thanks to that cryptographic chaining, and consensus mechanisms, how the network agrees on what's valid, like proof of work or proof of stake.
And we also talked about smart contracts, the self-executing code.
Right, and public key cryptography for security and identity. AWS also mentions different platforms like Ethereum, Corda, Quorum, built for different needs.
And the evolution from
Yeah.
Bitcoin Gen 1 to smart contracts Gen 2.
Exactly. And the key difference from a normal database: blockchain is decentralized, typically append only, hard to change past entries, transparent and chronological.
And people can use blockchain as a service, and the cloud now too. Makes
Yeah.
it easier to get started.
Yeah, lowers the barrier to entry for businesses wanting to experiment or build on blockchain without managing all the infrastructure themselves.
Okay, wow. We covered a lot. From Satoshi's original vision through all these diverse applications, the challenges like scalability, the regulatory wave, even government use. It's clear this is a powerful technology, still evolving, but with huge potential to change things.
Definitely.
And hopefully, for everyone listening, this deep dive has made the world of blockchain feel a bit less mysterious, more understandable.
Hope so. And, thinking about everything we discussed, it leaves you with some big questions, doesn't it?
Like what?
Well, given the potential, but also the hurdles, what do you, the listener, think will be blockchain's most transformative use in the next 10 years? Is it finance, supply chain, something totally different?
Or maybe thinking about that decentralization versus control debate. Where is blockchain governance actually heading? More towards open public systems or more controlled permissioned ones?
Yeah, fascinating things to chew on.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
So if any part of this sparked your interest,
Yeah.
the original white paper, the different blockchain types, regulation in your area, definitely dig deeper. It's a space that's constantly changing.
For sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.